Good evening, everybody. We're nearing the end of the year. I'm Daniel Martin, and tonight we'll be doing some reflecting on all the good, the bad, and yes, even the ugly. From the Hong Lim Park protest on the population white paper to the rules requiring licenses for news websites and the riot in Little India. Which story had the greatest impact on you? This is Look Back 2013. Well, my panel of guests are no strangers to you. Let's start with Mr. Gerald Giam, who's a non-constituency MP from the Workers' Party. Also joining us is Alvin Tan, founder and artistic director of The Necessary Stage. From the PAP, we have MPs Irene Ng and Mr. Hari Kumar Nair. And finally, Bertha Hansen, veteran newswoman and popular blogger. Also with me, I've got an audience of Singaporeans, from students to businessmen. In the next 1 hour, they'll be posing questions to my panel. And for those of you watching at home, our studio audience has been chosen from the hundreds who've written in to be a part of this program. All right, panel, welcome. Happy holidays, by the way. Let's get the ball rolling and start talking about what you think was the biggest story of 2013. What do you think?
Well, for me, it would have to be the Punggol East by-election, because it was a tremendous shift in the electorate, I see, and the Workers' Party won, obviously, and it was a four-cornered fight. It wasn't just a straight fight between the PAP and the Workers' Party, and it was considered quite a safe seat for the PAP. So I think this signaled a change in the electorate, a shift in the electorate, that they want to vote in a credible alternative to the PAP.
Okay, that was a big story for you. What do you think, Alvin, for yourself?
I think for me, it's the white paper on population, and I feel that it's because it's a ground-up initiative, and people were collaborating and coming together, and the turnout and what the media reported, what you read on social media and all that, and Singaporeans trying to work out the diversity among themselves. I think that was very important.
All right, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll be picking up on these as well. Irene, welcome. What do you think was your big story?
It is forging a new social compact. As you know, the government has made a strategic shift in its approach to nation building. It will do more for the vulnerable, more for the elderly, but at the same time, it means that the society has also to step up and take collective responsibility. So it means going forward, we have to forge a new social compact where it's not just the government's business, but also everyone's business to make sure that the vulnerable are taken care of.
What do you think was your story of the year?
Well, I agree with Irene. I think the announcements at the National Day Rally and at the budget show a significant shift in the focus of the government in terms of how it's going to develop Singapore going forward. Not just the economy, but how society takes care of each other. And one of the programs which I hope will come out well will be the new healthcare system we have, the universal healthcare, where we will take care of particularly those who are elderly and the vulnerable groups. Because I think healthcare is a large concern to many Singaporeans.
Bertha?
I think I would call this year the year of the foreigner, and starting right with the white paper on population. And I've never seen so much discussion on foreigners' impact on the economy, on the infrastructure, on social policies, on identity. And in fact, you can practically trace several policy outcomes that have come as a result of how Singaporeans feel about having foreigners in the midst.
I think you've all touched on such huge stories. You're absolutely right. These are big salient points for 2013. So I'm going to ask our audience as well. What was the biggest story for you? Feel free to ask questions of our panel as well. The microphone is yours. Who's first on the floor?
My name is Chen Li Ying. I would like to ask, as we know this year, after the population's white paper announcement, there are many and thousands of people attending Hong Lim Park for objections. So I believe that there are quite substantial numbers of questions and even doubts or maybe disagreements about that prior to the decisions. So my concern is that how will public's concerns and feedback being heard prior to major decisions for us as a public?
Chen, who would you like to address your question to?
MP Irene Ng, thanks.
Okay. Well, first of all, we have to acknowledge that the white paper on population could have been better presented, it could have been better communicated, and there should be more consultations with the people. And the PAP MPs have made this point very clearly with the government, and the government has taken that point. But we have to make clear what the paper is about. And many of the discussions and the protests against the white paper still has the misconception that it is to have a population target of 6.9 when that's not the case. It is a stretched target for infrastructure planning and land use beyond 2030. Because this government believes in long-term planning, it believes in having a responsibility for future generations. So it's a responsibility to prepare our people for the challenges of the future with the aging demographics, with the realities of a lower birth rate. But we hear the people's concerns. There is a genuine fear that, that foreigners are coming in numbers, in too big a number for us to absorb. And the government has listened, is moderating the number of foreign workers and foreigners coming to Singapore. It's tapering. But there is a commitment to do a mid-year review, to do a mid-term review on the population targets to make sure that it's what Singaporeans want and are comfortable towards moving in the direction.
One thing that the government, I thought, basically fumbled on was the fact that they started the Our Singapore conversation before they launched the white paper. And I think that sort of threw everybody off, that if you wanted to build a social compact, you should actually start the Our Singapore conversation and possibly end with the white paper, you know, rather than in fact now having to do a reverse, so to speak, and do a mid-term review.
Alvin, I saw you nodding along.
Well, actually, it has happened before, I think, during the Aware saga, and when there was the crisis on the migrant worker housing in Serangoon. The government, I felt, did not come in straight away. And the ground had time to kind of discuss among themselves and things like that. And I felt that that would be more, I don't know, more, a healthier beginning of a new relationship where it's not just top-down immediately. And people could hear their own voices, their own opinions, and there's diversity among ourselves, right? We all, there's more severe views and more middle views and things like that. And the time was given to kind of sort those things out. And then somehow the government came into the picture later on. So, well, yeah, so I agree with Bertha in terms of the white paper on population. It was just announced like that.
Manu here, I mean, I wanted to say that, you know, the foreigner issue is actually a humongous one. I mean, it comes within the context of population and all, but the population white paper focuses a lot on Singaporeans, meaning what's the impact of a larger population on Singaporeans so on. We haven't focused enough on what it's like in an economic sense, social sense, to have 2 million foreigners in a population of 5.2 million, right? 2 million foreigners, 500,000 permanent residents. The rest are all workers of some category or other. So I think what we have seen in Little India just a few days ago, and also what we saw earlier, the China bus workers strike and so on, these are manifestations of issues arising from this large number of foreign workers. And I think there's various impact on that, all sorts of impacts. And I mean, I would like the panelists to you know, look at, have we thought enough about that, you know, if we,
so
whether...
that is your question. Have we thought enough really about...
No, have we thought as in what we're going to do about them being there? Are we being fair to them in terms of welfare? Are we looking at how long should they stay here, you know, when is the cutoff point, all of that?
Let's get some responses. Mr. Hari Kumar, if I can bring you in on this.
Yeah, you see, one of the criticisms of the government in the last few years is that the population grew, in terms of foreign workers grew, and infrastructure wasn't planned ahead of time. There wasn't sufficient to meet with the rising population. So that was what the white paper was about. It was not about projecting the next 5 or 10 years, but looking at what we would like Singapore to be in the year 2030. How are we going to get there? We are not going to get there by freezing foreign worker population. Obviously, there will have to be some immigration, has to be some more foreign workers because we have to build the infrastructure. But we can't do it on an ad hoc basis. The whole idea of the white paper was to plan it going forward. And of course, as Irene says, there's got to be mid-term changes because no one's going to know what's going to happen in 2020, never mind 2030. But the good thing about the white paper, and it was not explained properly, I accept that. But the good thing about it, it showed a commitment to plan forward and for the long term, and really to get people behind it in terms of what issues we have to tackle. And I agree with Mano, some of these issues we have to tackle in the short term, medium term, as well as long term, including how do we deal with foreign worker numbers and how do we deal with them within the country and how do we manage integration with Singaporeans.
Gerald,
can I understand?
Yeah.
I don't understand actually how this gels with the URA master plan, which is also something with infrastructural development. So sometimes I'm not sure what exactly we're looking at. So the white paper on population, the 6.9 stretch target, and it has to do with infrastructure building. So does the URA master plan. So how many times do we have to look into this without looking at beyond the infrastructure itself, the ability to accommodate? What are the social aspects that we have to look at? Why hasn't that been examined?
It's not just about infrastructure planning, which is why the white paper was much more than that. And it would be good to read it from cover to cover. I suspect many people have not. Unfortunately, the debate was focused on the 6.9 million, which became a target.
Sure.
And after that, that sort of distracted the conversation. White paper was not just about infrastructure. How Singaporeans, not just Singaporeans, but permanent residents as well as foreign workers as well. Taking into account the challenges we face in birth rate, taking into account the challenges we face with an aging population, where we're going to have fewer working adults supporting elderly adults. So all these have to come into play. It's not just infrastructure, it's got social issues as well.
Gerald, let me bring you in, because I know that the Workers' Party view is that we should increase productivity amongst the residents. What do you think in view of his responses?
No, I think one of the many lessons that we learned from this whole debate and the aftermath is that, one, numbers matter. It does matter how many people we have in our country, because there are many, and the second point is that people matter. So both of them together, it means that if we have too many people, we just don't have the infrastructure to be able to accommodate that number of people.
So you're inclined to agree with what Bertha said, that the social aspect's missing?
And the government cannot just concentrate on the economic numbers. It needs to worry about what is the effect on the people. What is the negative effects of having an overpopulated country. I think that's something that needs to be paid more attention to.
Just to pick up that point, because it's precisely what Chen asked and also Bertha about the need for clarity and for better communication. And that's why we also have the URA master plan. It is to make sure that we continue to consult the people, we continue to share the vision and to see their response to the vision. So it's not just a one-off exercise with the white paper. After that, there's a Singapore conversation, which is robust and consults a wide range of people for their views. The URA master plan is another exercise in consultation. And it's precisely because we want to maintain a high standard of living for our people, and the plans make sure that all these details are looked into, but at the same time, we want to hear people's views. Is this the kind of future that we want? Is this the kind of HDB estates that we want? And it is, if you go to the URA website, you can see all the details there, and there's also an opening for us to be consulted, to take part in this exercise of being involved. So it's not just a top-down exercise as it's painted to be here.
We have to go for a commercial break right now, but stay tuned. When we return, we move on to the battle between the government and the online world. This is Look Back 2013.
Ultimately, someone has to make a decision, and the government has to make a decision as to which website it allows and which website it doesn't. So does the Workers' Party accept that the government should be given such a power?
Tonight, we're looking back on the biggest talking points of 2013. From viral videos to online regulation, a lot has happened in the virtual world. Perhaps the most significant were the new regulations by the Media Development Authority. We're going to come and find out more about that in just a moment, but let's entertain a few questions from our crowd standing by right now. Somebody going ahead with our first question. Hi.
Hi. So my name's Sean, and my question is directed for MP Hari Kumar. So as someone who uses social media regularly, as you do, I want to ask, exactly how do you think the government can apply the stretch planning you were talking about to the way it communicates with the people, such that it puts forth information well beforehand and at the same time engages people opposing views without the need to view them as people need to be combated?
Mr. Kumar, I'll give you a chance to respond quickly.
Well, I think communication is important. I think what is most important in any debate, be it between government and people or otherwise, would be that we debate based on facts. I think facts are facts. People are not entitled to their own facts. People are entitled to their own opinions, but not entitled to their own facts. And I think we will have far more constructive debates